Hey guys, now we're moving on to the second part. With the first part being what France was like before the Revolution, now we're going to go into how the French Revolution actually begins and how the Third Estate is going to try and topple everybody else. But a couple of things. The French Revolution is generally considered to have four phases. The first is the moderate phase, most famous for the National Assembly. The second is the radical phase of the Reign of Terror. This is where you're going to see much of the guillotine being used. Remember, the guillotine is that device that you stick your head into the hole and then you have a sharp metal knife come drop on your neck and cut your head off. Next, you have the conservative phase, and then lastly, you have when Napoleon takes over and starts the Age of Napoleon. To get started, though, with the first part, meaning of the Estates General. Near bankruptcy, you have Louis XVI is going to try and call a meeting of the Estates General on May 5th, 1789. He's going to ask for representatives from all three social classes to meet. This is kind of unique because it had been about 175 years since the estate generals had actually met all together. Each estate is create a cahier or a notebook of grievances. Remember, that's one of those vocabulary words. Presented to Louis XVI at the meeting. He just wanted to see what essentially everybody's problem was. Among the grievances of the Third Estate was the issue of voting. Each estate had only one vote, but hundreds of representatives. So, for example, the first estate had 300 representatives, second estate had 300, the third estate had 600. The third estate wanted each representative to have one vote. Okay, so you can see why they would want that, because they're the predominant group. They think that their representatives should be able to vote in the majority because they are the majority. Louis XVI supports traditional system. In this case, he supported the system where each estate had one vote, no matter how many representatives that they may actually have. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. A priest by the name of Abbé Sayes will write in support of the Third Estate. He writes a pamphlet called "What is the Third Estate?" He attacks nobles, clergymen, and privileges, becomes a major leader in this revolution, and he instigates what's called the National Assembly. The Third Estate is going to declare itself this National Assembly on June 17th. So a little bit of a month after when the Estates General initially meet. They want to draft a constitution, and this is considered the first act of the revolution. They get locked out of the Estates General on June 20th, so 3 days later. However, they're not going to let this stop them. They're going to go to a tennis court, and they're going to swear to me until a new constitution, and otherwise known as the tennis court oath. I know, pretty original, right? Trouble in Paris. Parisians, they agitated by several occurrences in early July. The city is moving towards all-out rioting. French military men beginning to side with rioters. Military maneuvers further alarm citizens of Paris, desire to defend themselves against military attack, and needed more arms to defend themselves. As you're going to see, the crowds are going to descend on the Bastille on July 14, 1789. This is still a national holiday in the country of France. It's known as Bastille Day. Built as a fortress to defend Paris in 1300s, and now has become a prison for the king's political enemies. Occasionally, it served as an armory or a weapons storehouse. Story of the Bastille. Crowd demands weapons and gunpowder in prison. Prison superintendent, prepared for potential riot, invited two leaders inside prison to negotiate. Negotiations drag on and on and on, and the crowd is going to start swelling up, and it's going to become more agitated the longer they have to wait. Impatient mob manages to lower the drawbridge. Members of the French Guard join in an attack, and the fighting lasts over 4 hours. The prison superintendent literally just throws his hands up in the air and gives up. He realizes that he is not going to be able to win this battle and defend the Bastille. Attackers sweep in and liberate the prisoners. So everybody who was prisoner on that day is now free, although there weren't that many of them, thankfully, that day. Superintendent Delaunay is beheaded. Mob puts head on pole and parades it around Paris. So they literally put him in the guillotine, chop his head off, put it on a giant one stick, and that becomes the symbol of this mob. Here's a picture of the Bastille Day, the storming of the Bastille. Very famous painting, especially in the country of France. Very, very popular. The revolt is unleashed. Panic, known as the Great Fear, causes revolt to break out all over France after Bastille. So Many people of France hear about the storming of the Bastille and they start to become afraid of what's going on. Peasant hatred of landowning system, broke into houses of their lords, destroyed records of obligations, otherwise known as credit records. So this way, everybody starts off at the same plate. Everybody's history gets erased, no matter if you owed money or had more money, whatever. Everybody starts off at the same foot again. Fear work of National Assembly will be stopped by foreign armies, so they are trying everything possible to reset the system, so that way nobody is better off than somebody else. They are terrified that Spain, England, even America is going to try and come in and stop this from going on. Legal privileges of nobles become abolished on August 4th. So as you can see, this is a very quick moving revolution. Yeah, it takes place over a couple months, but this is very fast for what was going on. Remember, the American Revolution took several years to get to all-out fighting. This one takes a couple months. Declaration of Rights. The Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen made by National Assembly August 4th, 1789. We're actually going to be looking at this a little bit more in depth, but a couple of its main points. People have natural rights to liberty, property, security, and resist oppression. All men are free and equal before the law. Appointment to public office should be based on talent, freedom of speech, press, and religion, and no group should be exempt from taxes. If you ever studied the U.S. Constitution in either government or U.S. history class, a lot of these should look familiar because they are based off our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. March on Versailles. People of Paris become agitated again. You're going to see this become a trend. People of Paris are going to be pretty ticked off pretty regularly. Louis XVI refuses to accept decrees of National Assembly, mainly the Constitution, because it takes power away from him. Anger over rising price of bread and starvation of children. Several thousand women march into Palace of Versailles October 5th, 1789 in the rain. Armed with a sword of weaponry, they crowd demands the king and family move to Paris. Thought it would show support of National Assembly and would prevent king from asking foreign armies for support. Pretty much, they wanted to control the king and his family, where they went, who they talked to, all that. They did not want to give these guys any kind of freedom whatsoever. The next day, the king and the family and the crowd will make the trip to Paris. A couple of reforms for the church. National Assembly issues the civil constitution of the clergy on July 12th the next year. Brought church under control of the government, so this way the clergymen will have to answer to somebody. Bishops and priests elected by the people. Nation would pay clergy salaries. So once again, pretty much making the church a public office. Church lands were seized and sold for money to pay the debt off that King Louis XVI had created. Clergy and peasants opposed this action, horrified and angered. Huge mistake. Made enemies of Catholics at a time when the revolution needed friends. This is literally going to tick off many people who were either in support of the revolution or would have supported the revolution. Many of those people are going to go to their side and start supporting the king and the clergy because of this single act. Not a brilliant move by the revolution. Attempted escape by the king and the queen. You wouldn't expect the king or queen to actually stay captive, nor should it surprise you when they didn't try to. King Louis XVI attempts to escape France with his family in June 1791. They disguise themselves and flee to east, hoping to get to the border town where troops could help. They're recognized and captured and brought back to Paris. Radicals now distrust Louis XVI and viewed as unwilling to support government reforms. Pretty much they now start to see him as someone who is not going to change, and why keep him around. Declaration, just real quick. Foreign nations felt threatened by the French Revolution. Pretty much other nations who had king and queens saw this happening in France and were afraid that if this was successful, then their peasants and other people would try and uprise and overthrow them. So they made sure they have to try and stop it by mainly trying to help King Louis XVI escape. If they could get him to escape, they could invade and then crush the revolution before it actually got started. Kings of Austria and Prussia issued a declaration of Pillnitz in August, threatened military intervention to protect Louis XVI, mostly meant as a bluff, and revolutionaries took it seriously and prepared for war. Constitution of 1791 adopted in September. National Assembly now becomes a legislative assembly, so now they have a right to start creating laws. Designed as a conservative government, king still ruled, but with very limited power. Only legislative assembly could make or abolish laws. Nobody else besides these guys. gave voting rights to citizens, but not equally. So you have two kinds of citizens, one active, one passive. If you're active, you could vote 25 or older and who paid a certain amount of taxes. Passive could not vote, but were generally equal in society. Judges and other government officials were elected to office. Olympe de Gouges, pen name of Marie Gouges, French playwright and political activist. Declaration of the Rights of Women and the Female Citizen, published immediately after Constitution in 1791, pointed out that women were not given consideration of political and social equality of the Revolution. Eventually will become an enemy of the Revolution, puts her on trial, and like many enemies of the Revolution, she will be guillotined for her beliefs. Legislative Assembly, elections held in September 1791 for new members, meets for the first time on October 1st, 1791, amends Constitution to allow king to be tried for treason. Not really necessarily amends it as much as it creates a whole new rule that allows them to put the king on trial. Faced many new crises, economic problems, currency drops in value, fear of attack by foreign countries. This legislative assembly will last less than a year before we move into the next phase of the revolution. Once this happens, the next phase, the radical phase, is going to start. To give you an idea, you guys can read this and write this down in your notes. But this is just pretty much describes how the legislative assembly will eventually, when they meet, how they sit down. This also gives birth to our idea here in America of the left and the right with Republicans and Democrats. If you notice, the radicals sit on the left side of the hall, conservatives sit on the right side of the hall, which should sound familiar for anybody familiar with American politics. Conservatives are generally seen being on the right. Liberals are definitely seen on the left. Declaration of war. Austria sends troops to the French border, once again trying to protect the French monarchy. They do not want to support the French Revolution, just try to keep the monarchy intact. Legislative Assembly declares war less than a month later. French army in disarray, loses every battle with Austrians and Prussians during the summer. However, they will win a crucial battle in September, and that is literally going to save the revolution. Sans-culottes, working class men and women from all over France, they help push the revolution to the radical phase. They're going to be the ones that take it to the radical phase. They took their name from the style of dress, wearing long trousers. Become synonymous with the pride of the working class, wanted France to be a republic, a government ruled by elected representatives. Constitution of 1791 falls short of this goal, and voting rights are limited. Paris Commune, City Council of Paris. Many members were sans-culottes, upset about food shortages and defeats in the war. Felt king was in supporting the enemy in war. Organized march to Royal Palace on August 10th, 1792. They're going to slaughter the royal guards, and royal family is captured and thrown in prison. Angry mobs attack the prison in what's called the September Massacre. Rumors of imprisoned nobles planning an attack. Approximately 1,200 people die, many of them just regular, ordinary prisoners, not actually enemies of these guys. Alright, so as you can see, that's setting up, that is the, we'll call it the normal phase of the revolution. We're now getting into the radical phase, as you can see with the picture with the guillotine. You're going to see this many times coming up. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.